Hello there. Welcome to an Arctic Purse. Tonight we're drifting northward to the world's most peaceful frontier, where silence stretches endlessly and time moves with the rhythm of ancient ice. The Arctic holds secrets that few places on Earth can match, wrapped in a tranquil beauty that has remained unchanged for thousands of years. Here, beneath the dancing lights of the aurora and across vast expanses of pristine snow, nature has crafted the ultimate sanctuary of calm. As we explore these gentle truths about the Arctic tonight, you might find yourself sinking deeper into relaxation, letting the quiet majesty of this frozen world wash over you like a soft blanket of snow. Each fact we discover will be like a snowflake, delicate and unique, settling gently in your mind as we journey together through this land of eternal winter. If you enjoy these peaceful explorations into our planet's most serene places, feel free to like and subscribe, or simply rest here with us as we let the Arctic's timeless wisdom guide us into tranquility. For now, close your eyes if you wish. Breathe deeply and let the stillness of the far north embrace you. Let's begin our gentle journey. The Arctic Ocean is the shallowest of all the world's oceans, with an average depth that feels almost intimate compared to the mysterious abyssal depths found elsewhere. At roughly 4,000 feet deep on average, it's like a vast, shallow basin cradled by the northern continents. This gentle depth means that even in the heart of winter, when ice covers nearly everything, there's a sense of closeness to the seafloor below, as if the ocean is holding you in a protective embrace rather than threatening to swallow you in endless darkness. Beneath the Arctic ice, seals create breathing holes that they maintain throughout the long winter months. These small openings in the ice are like tiny windows to the world above, carefully tended by the seals who return to them again and again. The seals will scratch and claw at the ice as it tries to freeze over, keeping their lifelines open with a patience that speaks to the unhurried rhythm of Arctic life. There's something deeply soothing about imagining these gentle creatures swimming peacefully beneath the ice, knowing exactly where to surface for their next breath. Arctic foxes change their coats completely with the seasons, transforming from rich brown summer fur to pure white winter coats. This isn't just a gradual shift, but a complete metamorphosis that happens twice each year, as if nature is dressing them in the perfect outfit for each season. During the transition periods, they wear coats of mixed colors, creating beautiful patterns that look like watercolor paintings against the tundra landscape. The process is so gentle and natural that the foxes seem to simply wake up one day wearing the perfect camouflage for their world. The midnight sun of Arctic summer creates a phenomenon where time seems to stand still. For months, the sun never sets, instead tracing lazy circles across the sky, sometimes high, sometimes low, but always present. This creates a dreamlike quality to the landscape where shadows move in slow, hypnotic patterns throughout the day and night. Plants and animals adapt to this endless daylight with a calm acceptance, following internal rhythms that have nothing to do with sunrise or sunset. Polar bears have hollow hair. Each individual strand is like a tiny, transparent tube that traps warm air and helps insulate their massive bodies against the cold. When light passes through these hollow hairs, it creates the brilliant white appearance we associate with polar bears, though their skin underneath is actually black. This ingenious design means that polar bears are essentially wearing the world's most efficient winter coat, custom made by nature for life in the Arctic. The indigenous peoples of the Arctic have dozens of words for different types of snow and ice. each describing subtle variations that most of us would never notice. There's a word for snow that's perfect for building, another for snow that crunches underfoot, and yet another for the kind of snow that falls silently on a windless day. This rich vocabulary reflects a deep, intimate relationship with their environment, where every nuance of winter weather has been observed, named, and passed down through generations. Arctic terns make the longest migration of any bird, traveling from Arctic to Antarctic and back again each year. These elegant seabirds experience 2 summers annually, following the sun from one pole to the other in an endless pursuit of daylight and abundance. Their migration is like a gentle dance across the entire planet, covering roughly 44,000 miles each year as they ride the winds between the world's polar regions. The aurora borealis appears most frequently during the Arctic's long winter nights, painting the sky in soft curtains of green, blue, and sometimes pink light. These northern lights are created when charged particles from the sun interact with Earth's magnetic field, but the result feels like pure magic. The lights dance silently across the sky, sometimes moving slowly like breathing, other times flickering quickly like gentle laughter. Indigenous cultures have long believed the aurora represents the spirits of their ancestors dancing in the sky. Walruses are surprisingly social creatures who gather in large groups called herds, sometimes numbering in the thousands. They lie close together on ice floes or beaches, their massive bodies creating warm, living carpets. These gentle giants use their tusks not primarily for fighting, but for hauling themselves out of the water onto ice, which is why they're sometimes called pinnipeds, meaning fin-footed. Their deep, rumbling calls carry across the Arctic waters like a slow, peaceful conversation between old friends. The Arctic tundra bursts into bloom during its brief summer, transforming from a monochrome landscape into a tapestry of tiny, brilliant flowers. Arctic poppies, purple saxifrage, and cotton grass create vast meadows that stretch to the horizon. These plants are masters of efficiency, completing their entire growing season in just a few short months. They grow low to the ground, forming dense mats that conserve heat and protect them from the constant Arctic winds. Narwhals, the unicorns of the sea, glide through Arctic waters with an otherworldly grace. Their famous tusks are actually elongated teeth that can grow up to 10 feet long. These mysterious whales travel in small pods, their tusks breaking the surface occasionally like ancient spears pointing toward the sky. Scientists believe they use their tusks for various purposes, from breaking ice to sensing changes in water pressure and temperature. The Greenland ice sheet contains enough fresh water to raise global sea levels by about 20 feet if it were to melt completely. But for now, it sits peacefully across most of Greenland, a massive dome of ice that's been accumulating for hundreds of thousands of years. At its thickest point, the ice sheet is more than 2 miles deep, containing a record of Earth's climate history in its frozen layers, like pages in an ancient book. Arctic char swim in the clearest, coldest lakes scattered across the tundra. These fish have adapted to water so pure and cold that they grow very slowly, sometimes living for decades in the same pristine lakes where they were born. Their slow metabolism means they can survive on very little food, moving through their underwater world with an unhurried grace that matches the pace of Arctic life above the surface. Musk oxen form protective circles when threatened, with the adults facing outward and the young sheltered safely in the center. These shaggy, prehistoric-looking animals have survived ice ages and harsh winters with this simple but effective strategy. Their thick, woolly coats, called kiviut, are so warm and soft that indigenous peoples have long considered them among the finest natural fibers in the world. The Arctic is home to the world's smallest whale, the beluga, whose white coloring and rounded heads give them an almost ethereal appearance. Belugas are among the most vocal of all whales, producing a wide variety of clicks, whistles, and chirps that have earned them the nickname canaries of the sea. They travel in pods through the Arctic waters, their calls echoing beneath the ice like a gentle underwater symphony. Pack ice in the Arctic Ocean is constantly moving, driven by winds and currents that push massive ice floes across the water like slow-motion puzzle pieces. This ice can be several feet thick, creating a floating landscape that's always changing. Seals and polar bears have learned to navigate this shifting world, understanding the subtle signs that tell them where the ice is strong and where leads of open water might appear. The permafrost beneath much of the Arctic landscape acts like a natural freezer, preserving organic matter that can be thousands of years old. This permanently frozen ground creates unique patterns on the surface called polygons, where repeated freezing and thawing has organized the soil into geometric shapes that look like natural artwork when viewed from above. Arctic ground squirrels are among the few mammals that can survive the Arctic winter without migrating. They enter a state of hibernation so deep that their body temperature can drop below freezing while they remain alive. During the brief Arctic summer, they must gather enough food and body fat to sustain them through 8 months of sleep, making every warm day precious and purposeful. The midnight sun creates a unique rhythm in Arctic communities, where people often adapt their sleep schedules to this endless daylight. Children play outside at what would normally be bedtime, and adults may find themselves gardening or fishing at 2 in the morning simply because the sun is shining. This creates a dreamlike quality to summer life in the Arctic, where time becomes fluid and days blend together in a peaceful continuum of light. Caribou migrations across the Arctic tundra follow ancient pathways that have remained unchanged for thousands of years. These massive herds move like slow rivers across the landscape, their hoofbeats creating a soft thunder that carries for miles across the open plains. The migration routes are so deeply ingrained that caribou will follow the same narrow corridors their ancestors used, even when snow obscures all visible landmarks. Watching caribou herd pass is like witnessing time itself in motion, as hundreds of thousands of animals flow across the tundra in patterns as old as the ice itself. Snowy owls nest directly on the ground in shallow depressions they scrape into the tundra. These magnificent birds blend so perfectly with their surroundings that they seem to materialize from the landscape itself. The female sits patiently on her eggs while the male hunts across vast territories, his silent flight carrying him over miles of pristine wilderness. Their soft hooting calls drift across the tundra like whispered conversations, adding a gentle soundtrack to the Arctic's quiet symphony. The Arctic Ocean freezes in layers, creating ice formations that tell the story of each winter's progression. First comes the thin, flexible new ice that bends with the waves like a liquid mirror. As temperatures drop further, this young ice thickens and strengthens, eventually becoming the solid platform that supports the Arctic's winter ecosystem. The ice forms pressure ridges where flows push against each other, creating sculptural formations that rise like frozen mountain ranges from the flat expanse. Lichens grow incredibly slowly across Arctic rocks, sometimes adding only millimeters to their size each year. These patient organisms can live for hundreds or even thousands of years, painting the stones in soft shades of yellow, orange, and green. They require nothing more than moisture from the air and minerals from the rock surface, thriving in conditions that would challenge most other forms of life. Their slow, steady growth creates living art across the Arctic landscape, transforming bare stone into canvases of subtle color. The Arctic char's spawning runs occur in crystal-clear streams that flow from glacial lakes. These fish navigate by instinct through waters so pure you can see every pebble on the bottom, their silver bodies flashing like liquid mercury against the dark stones. The streams maintain a constant temperature just above freezing, creating perfect nurseries for the next generation of Arctic char, who will spend their early years in these pristine waters. Ptarmigan change not only their feather color with the seasons, but also grow feathers on their feet during winter, creating natural snowshoes that help them walk across soft snow without sinking. These hardy birds remain in the Arctic year-round, their white winter plumage making them nearly invisible against the snow. They move in small flocks across the tundra, their soft clucking calls barely audible above the whisper of wind across the ice. The northern lights follow an 11-year cycle that corresponds with solar activity, meaning some years bring more frequent and intense displays than others. During peak years, the aurora can appear almost nightly, filling the sky with dancing curtains of light that reflect off the snow and ice below. The lights seem to breathe with the rhythm of the magnetic field, expanding and contracting in waves that pulse across the entire dome of the sky. Arctic poppies always face the sun, slowly turning their bright yellow faces to follow its path across the sky during the endless daylight of summer. These cheerful flowers grow close to the ground in dense clusters, their papery petals creating small pools of warmth that attract the few insects that venture this far north. The poppy's ability to track the sun helps them maximize their photosynthesis during the brief growing season, making the most of every ray of precious sunlight. Bowhead whales can live for more than 200 years, making them among the longest-lived mammals on Earth. These ancient giants cruise slowly through Arctic waters, their massive heads breaking through ice up to 2 feet thick. They feed by swimming with their mouths open, filtering tiny organisms from the water through their baleen plates. Their deep, resonant songs travel for miles through the cold water, creating a communication network that spans vast distances across the Arctic Ocean. The tree line in the Arctic is marked by scattered, wind-sculpted spruces and birches that grow in sheltered valleys and along riverbanks. These hardy trees often grow more horizontally than vertically, their branches shaped by constant Arctic winds into forms that look like natural bonsai. Some of these trees are centuries old despite being only a few feet tall, their slow growth a testament to their patience and resilience. Arctic cotton grass sways in the summer breeze like fields of soft white clouds hovering just above the tundra. These aren't actually grasses, but sedges, and their fluffy white seed heads create the illusion of cotton balls scattered across the landscape. The plants form vast meadows that stretch to the horizon, creating one of the Arctic's most peaceful and ethereal sights as they dance gently in the wind. Bearded seals get their name from their prominent whiskers, which they use to feel along the ocean floor for food. These gentle giants are the largest seals in the Arctic, and their deep, haunting calls can be heard both above and below the ice. They prefer areas where the ice is constantly moving, using the shifting flows as platforms for resting while remaining close to the open water they need for feeding. The midnight sun creates unique ice formations called sun cups, where the constant but low-angle sunlight melts small depressions into the surface of snow and ice. These cup-shaped formations create a textured landscape that looks like frozen waves or scales, adding visual interest to what might otherwise be a monotonous white expanse. The sun cups form and reform throughout the summer, creating an ever-changing sculptural garden across the Arctic's frozen surfaces. Wolverines travel enormous distances across the Arctic landscape, their broad paws acting like natural snowshoes that allow them to move efficiently over soft snow. These solitary animals are incredibly strong for their size and can carry prey much larger than themselves back to their dens. Despite their fierce reputation, wolverines are simply trying to survive in one of Earth's most challenging environments, using their intelligence and strength to make the most of every opportunity. Arctic rivers run crystal clear during the brief summer months, their waters so pure they seem to glow with an inner light. These waterways are fed by melting snow and ice, creating streams that maintain a constant, cold temperature throughout the summer. The rivers wind through valleys carved by countless years of seasonal flooding, creating meandering paths that reflect the sky like ribbons of liquid silver across the tundra. The aurora borealis appears in many colors, though green is most common due to oxygen particles glowing at a specific altitude. Higher in the atmosphere, oxygen creates rare red auroras, while nitrogen produces blue and purple lights. The colors blend and separate like watercolors in the sky, creating displays that can fill the entire dome of night with gentle, moving light. Each aurora is unique, lasting anywhere from minutes to hours as the solar wind interacts with Earth's protective magnetic field. Ringed seals maintain breathing holes in the ice throughout winter by constantly scratching at the surface with their strong claws. These vital openings are often marked by small domes of ice that form from the seal's breath freezing in the cold air. The seals can hold their breath for up to 20 minutes while hunting beneath the ice, but they always return to their carefully maintained breathing holes, which become like underwater doorways connecting two different worlds. Arctic terns experience more daylight than any other living creature, witnessing 2 summers each year as they follow the sun from pole to pole. These graceful seabirds spend their entire lives in pursuit of endless day, never experiencing the true darkness of winter. Their wings are perfectly designed for efficient flight, allowing them to glide for hours without flapping as they ride the air currents across thousands of miles of open ocean. When they finally reach their destination, they settle into Arctic or Antarctic summers, with the calm satisfaction of travelers who have found exactly where they belong. The sound of ice shifting in the Arctic Ocean creates a natural symphony that can be heard for miles across the frozen landscape. As temperatures change and currents move beneath the surface, massive ice flows grind against each other with deep, resonant groans that echo like the breathing of some ancient sleeping giant. These sounds are punctuated by sharp cracks and pops as the ice adjusts to pressure, creating a percussion section in nature's cold weather orchestra. The entire frozen sea seems alive with these gentle conversations between ice and water. Polar bear dens are carved into snowdrifts where mothers give birth to tiny cubs no larger than guinea pigs. These underground nurseries maintain a surprisingly warm temperature through the mother's body heat and the insulating properties of the snow walls. The cubs spend their first months in this cozy darkness, growing stronger while protected from the harsh Arctic winter above. When spring finally arrives, the family emerges into a world of endless white, the cubs seeing sunlight for the first time in their young lives. Arctic willows grow as carpets rather than trees, spreading horizontally across the tundra in dense mats that rarely rise more than a few inches above ground. These remarkable plants can live for decades, their branches growing longer each year while staying close to the warming earth. In autumn, their tiny leaves turn brilliant shades of red and gold, creating vast tapestries of color that stretch across valleys and hillsides. The willow's low profile protects them from fierce Arctic winds, while allowing them to capture precious heat from the sun-warmed soil. Beluga whales gather in large pods during summer months, their white forms creating living clouds beneath the clear Arctic waters. These sociable creatures communicate through an extensive vocabulary of whistles, clicks, and chirps that carry through the water like gentle conversations between old friends. Baby belugas are born gray and gradually lighten to pure white as they mature, spending their early years learning the complex social behaviors that will help them thrive in their Arctic home. The permafrost creates unique underground ice formations called ice wedges, where repeated freezing and thawing has created intricate patterns that look like crystal art galleries buried beneath the tundra. These formations can extend dozens of feet underground, creating hidden chambers and tunnels that remain frozen for thousands of years. Sometimes these ice structures are revealed when riverbanks erode, exposing walls of pure ice that gleam like natural stained glass windows in the Arctic sunlight. Musk oxen have an undercoat called kiviut that is 8 times warmer than sheep's wool, and so fine it feels like silk between your fingers. This precious fiber is shed naturally each spring, sometimes getting caught on rocks and bushes where it can be gathered without disturbing the animals. The kiviut forms a protective layer so efficient that musk oxen can remain comfortable even when temperatures drop to -40 degrees, standing calmly in blizzards that would challenge any other large mammal. Arctic foxes cache food during abundant times, creating underground pantries that sustain them through lean periods. These intelligent hunters can remember the locations of dozens of buried meals, returning to retrieve them weeks or months later with remarkable precision. Their food storage system is so efficient that they often have surplus supplies, demonstrating a natural understanding of resource management that ensures survival through the Arctic's unpredictable seasons. The midnight sun creates a unique phenomenon where flowers bloom in slow motion, their petals opening and closing in rhythm with the sun's circular path across the sky. Arctic poppies and other tundra flowers track the sun's movement throughout the 24-hour day, creating gardens that seem to dance constantly in the endless light. This continuous movement helps the plants maximize their photosynthesis during the brief growing season, making every moment of summer as productive as possible. Caribou calves are born with the ability to walk within hours of birth, an essential skill for animals that must keep pace with migrating herds from their very first days of life. These young animals develop quickly on their mother's rich milk, growing strong enough to travel dozens of miles each day across the tundra. The calves learn to recognize their mother's unique calls among thousands of other voices in the herd, creating bonds that help them stay together during the long journeys across the Arctic landscape. Sea ice provides a platform for an entire ecosystem of creatures that depend on this frozen habitat for survival. Algae grow on the underside of ice floes, creating hanging gardens that feed tiny crustaceans, which in turn support fish, seals, and whales. This upside-down world beneath the ice teems with life during the Arctic summer, as nutrients from the melting ice create blooms of microscopic organisms that form the base of a complex food web. Snowy owls have asymmetrical ear openings that allow them to pinpoint the exact location of prey moving beneath the snow. These silent hunters can detect the faint sounds of lemmings and voles tunneling through their winter world, diving through soft snow with deadly accuracy to catch prey they never actually see. Their feathered feet act as natural snowshoes, allowing them to walk across the surface without sinking while they listen for the subtle sounds of life moving below. The aurora borealis reaches its peak intensity during the equinoxes when Earth's magnetic field is optimally aligned to channel solar particles toward the polar regions. During these periods, the lights can appear almost every clear night, filling the sky with curtains of green, blue, and red that dance from horizon to horizon. The aurora creates its own weather system in the upper atmosphere, generating winds and electrical currents that can affect radio communications around the world. Arctic char spawn in the same crystal-clear streams where they were born, navigating by memory and instinct across hundreds of miles of lakes and rivers to return to their natal waters. These remarkable fish can live for decades, growing slowly in the cold Arctic waters while building the strength they need for their epic spawning journeys. Their silver bodies flash like living mercury as they leap small waterfalls and navigate shallow rapids, driven by an ancient urge to complete the cycle that has continued for thousands of generations. Walrus tusks continue growing throughout the animal's lifetime, creating unique identifying marks that help individuals recognize each other within large herds. These ivory spears can reach lengths of 3 feet or more, and each tusk develops its own distinctive shape based on how the walrus uses it for hauling out of water, breaking ice, and digging for food. The tusks become polished and worn through years of use, developing a smooth patina that gleams like old bone in the Arctic sunlight. The tree line advances and retreats over centuries in response to long-term climate cycles, creating a slow-motion dance between forest and tundra that plays out across geological time. Hardy spruces and birches establish themselves during warmer periods, then retreat during colder cycles, leaving behind the bleached skeletons of ancient trees as markers of the forest's former reach. These ghost forests create haunting landscapes where weathered wood stands like sculptures against the endless sky. Arctic ground squirrels emerge from hibernation with perfect timing, awakening just as the first spring flowers begin to bloom across the tundra. These small mammals must pack an entire year's worth of activity into the brief Arctic summer, gathering food, raising young, and building the fat reserves they need to survive another 8-month sleep. Their burrows extend deep into the permafrost, creating underground chambers that remain at stable temperatures throughout the year. Narwhals use their tusks to stun fish, stunning their prey with precise strikes before consuming them in the dark waters beneath the Arctic ice. These mysterious whales dive to depths of over a mile, following the edge of the pack ice as they hunt for Arctic cod and other deep-water fish. Their tusks are actually highly sensitive organs that can detect changes in water pressure, temperature, and chemical composition, making them living sensors perfectly adapted to their underwater world. The midnight sun creates thermal currents that lift birds high into the Arctic sky, allowing species like golden plovers and dunlin to soar effortlessly above the tundra while scanning for food below. These updrafts are generated by the uneven heating of the landscape, where dark patches of exposed earth absorb more solar energy than surrounding snow and ice. Birds have learned to use these invisible elevators to conserve energy during their long Arctic days. Bearded seals sing complex songs beneath the ice, their haunting melodies carrying for miles through the cold Arctic water. These underwater concerts peak during breeding season, when males create elaborate compositions that combine trills, moans, and rhythmic beats lasting up to a minute each. The songs seem to serve multiple purposes, helping seals locate each other in the vast underwater world, while also establishing territories and attracting mates. Arctic cotton grass creates vast white meadows that sway hypnotically in the summer breeze, their fluffy seed heads catching and releasing the light like thousands of tiny mirrors. These plants are among the first to colonize disturbed ground, spreading rapidly across areas where ice has melted or soil has been exposed. The cotton-like seeds are dispersed by wind across enormous distances, allowing the plants to establish new colonies far from their parent populations. Wolverines cache large kills in natural freezers created by the permafrost, burying meat in spots where it will remain frozen and fresh for months. These powerful scavengers have been observed moving prey weighing several times their own body weight across miles of difficult terrain to reach suitable storage locations. Their remarkable strength and endurance make them perfectly suited to take advantage of every feeding opportunity in the resource-scarce Arctic environment. The aurora borealis sometimes produces sound, though scientists are still debating the mechanism behind these mysterious crackling and hissing noises that accompany particularly intense displays. Witnesses describe hearing faint sounds like rustling silk or distant applause during the most spectacular auroral storms. These acoustic effects may be created by electromagnetic disturbances in the atmosphere, adding an auditory dimension to one of nature's most beautiful visual displays. Ringed seals are born in snow caves that their mothers excavate above breathing holes in the sea ice. These natal dens provide protection for newborn pups during their most vulnerable weeks, when they must develop the thick layer of blubber they need to survive in Arctic waters. The mothers maintain these nurseries throughout the nursing period, constantly monitoring the ice conditions to ensure their pups remain safe from both predators and the elements. Arctic rivers create natural ice sculptures as they freeze, with water continuing to flow beneath while building elaborate crystal formations on the surface. These frozen waterfalls and ice bridges form throughout winter, creating temporary art galleries that change with each storm and temperature shift. The sound of water moving beneath the ice creates a gentle murmur that carries across the quiet landscape, like a hidden conversation between the river and the frozen world above. Beluga whale calves stay close to their mothers for up to 2 years, learning the complex navigation routes through Arctic waters that have been passed down through generations. These family bonds are strengthened through constant communication, with mothers and calves maintaining contact through soft whistles and clicks that sound like underwater lullabies. The young whales gradually develop the pure white coloration that gives belugas their ghostly beauty, transforming from gray shadows into creatures that seem to glow with their own inner light. The permafrost acts like a vast underground library, preserving pollen, insects, and plant matter from thousands of years ago in perfect condition. Scientists can read the history of Arctic climate by studying these frozen archives, discovering which plants grew in specific locations centuries before human records began. Each layer of permafrost tells a story of seasons long past, creating a timeline of Arctic life that extends far deeper than human memory. Ptarmigan gather in small flocks during winter, their pure white plumage making them appear like living snowdrifts moving across the landscape. These hardy birds have adapted to survive on a winter diet of willow buds and twigs, their digestive systems changing with the seasons to process this fibrous food. They create shallow depressions in the snow for shelter, sometimes tunneling completely beneath the surface to escape harsh winds while maintaining access to their limited food sources. Arctic char lakes are so clear that fish swimming at depths of 50 feet appear to be floating in air rather than water. These pristine bodies of water maintain their clarity because of the cold temperatures and minimal organic matter, creating underwater worlds that seem more like crystal caves than typical lakes. The fish move with an unhurried grace through this transparent medium, their movements creating gentle ripples that catch and scatter the filtered sunlight. Musk oxen form defensive formations called defensive squares when protecting their young, with adults positioning themselves shoulder to shoulder while calves huddle safely in the center. This ancient strategy has served them well through countless generations, allowing these Ice Age survivors to thrive in conditions that would challenge most other large mammals. Their thick, shaggy coats make them look like living mountains moving slowly across the tundra, their warm breath creating small clouds that dissipate quickly in the dry Arctic air. The midnight sun affects plant growth in unexpected ways, causing some Arctic flowers to bloom continuously throughout the summer, rather than following the typical day-night cycle. Arctic poppies and purple saxifrage take advantage of the constant light to maximize their photosynthesis, creating displays of color that persist for weeks rather than days. These extended blooming periods support the few insects that venture into the Arctic, providing a reliable source of nectar throughout the brief growing season. Walrus herds create complex social hierarchies based on age and size, with older, larger individuals claiming the best spots on ice floes while younger animals arrange themselves around the edges. These massive gatherings can include thousands of individuals, their combined weight sometimes causing ice floes to tip or crack under the pressure. The walruses seem unconcerned by this constant shifting of their platform, adjusting their positions with the calm patience of creatures perfectly adapted to their unstable world. Arctic foxes change their hunting strategies completely between summer and winter, switching from catching small mammals and birds to scavenging the remains of polar bear kills. During summer, they become accomplished egg thieves, raiding bird colonies with remarkable stealth and timing. Their winter survival often depends on following polar bears at a respectful distance, waiting for opportunities to claim scraps from successful hunts, while avoiding confrontation with their much larger neighbors. The aurora borealis creates its own electromagnetic field effects that can disrupt radio communications and satellite signals across the entire Arctic region. During particularly intense displays, these disruptions can affect navigation systems and communication networks thousands of miles away from the visible lights. The aurora essentially creates a natural electromagnetic storm in the upper atmosphere, demonstrating the incredible power of the solar wind interacting with Earth's magnetic field. Caribou antlers are grown and shed annually by both males and females, with the timing carefully synchronized to the Arctic seasons. Bulls drop their antlers after the autumn rut, while pregnant females keep theirs throughout winter to help them compete for food during the harsh months when they need extra nutrition. The antlers grow at remarkable speeds during summer, sometimes adding several inches per week as the animals race to complete their growth before winter arrives. Snowy owls nest on slight elevations across the tundra, choosing spots that offer commanding views of their hunting territories while providing protection from ground predators. The female creates a simple scrape in the ground, lining it with feathers and soft grasses gathered from the surrounding area. These nests are so well camouflaged that they blend perfectly with the surrounding landscape, becoming visible only when the sitting owl shifts position or takes flight. Arctic rivers flow with unusual patterns during spring breakup, when massive ice jams create temporary lakes that can cover hundreds of square miles. These seasonal floods transform the tundra landscape, creating vast wetlands that attract migrating waterfowl and provide crucial habitat for countless species. The water is so cold and clear that it seems to magnify everything beneath its surface, turning shallow pools into windows that reveal every detail of the life below. Belugas navigate using echolocation so sophisticated they can distinguish between objects that differ by mere inches in size or density. Their melon-shaped foreheads contain specialized organs that focus and direct these sound waves, creating a biological sonar system more precise than human technology. The whales can map their underwater environment in complete darkness, building detailed mental pictures of ice formations, underwater obstacles, and potential prey through sound alone. The Arctic Ocean's unique currents create areas where ice remains thin throughout winter, forming polynyas that serve as crucial refuges for marine life. These open water areas are like oases in the frozen sea, providing access to air for seals and whales while serving as feeding grounds for seabirds. The water in these polynyas steams dramatically in cold air, creating localized weather systems and fog banks that can be seen from great distances. Arctic willows produce catkins that emerge before their leaves, creating fuzzy silver decorations across the low-growing branches in early spring. These flowers appear almost magical against the still, brown landscape, catching and holding dewdrops that freeze into tiny crystal ornaments in the cold morning air. The willow's early flowering provides crucial pollen for the few insects that emerge during the short Arctic spring, supporting pollinators when few other food sources are available. Polar bear tracks in snow can remain visible for months in the dry Arctic climate, creating temporary highways that tell the stories of individual bears' journeys across the ice. Each track reveals details about the bear's size, direction of travel, and even its hunting success based on the spacing and depth of the prints. These ephemeral trails connect distant parts of the Arctic landscape, showing the incredible distances these solitary predators cover in their search for food. Wolverines have been tracked traveling over 40 miles in a single day across Arctic terrain, their efficient gait allowing them to cover vast distances without apparent fatigue. These remarkable animals can climb steep ice faces and navigate through deep snow with equal ease, their broad paws distributing their weight so effectively they rarely break through even soft snow surfaces. Their endurance seems almost supernatural, enabling them to patrol territories that can span hundreds of square miles. Arctic char develop unique coloration patterns that vary between different lake populations, with some displaying brilliant orange spawning colors while others remain silver throughout their lives. These color variations have evolved over thousands of years of isolation in separate water bodies, creating distinct populations that look almost like different species. The fish seem to wear the colors of their specific lakes, their hues reflecting the unique mineral content and light conditions of their individual homes. The midnight sun creates unique ice crystal formations called sun cups and sun crusts, where the low angle but constant sunlight creates intricate patterns across snow and ice surfaces. These formations develop slowly over days or weeks, creating textured landscapes that look like frozen ocean waves or elaborate crystal gardens. The patterns change constantly as the sun moves in its circular path, creating an ever-shifting sculpture gallery across the Arctic's frozen surfaces. Bowhead whales have been found with 19th century harpoon points still embedded in their blubber, suggesting that some individuals alive today survived encounters with commercial whalers over a century ago. These ancient scars tell stories of survival that span multiple human generations, reminding us that these gentle giants experienced time on a scale vastly different from our own. Their slow movements through Arctic waters seem even more majestic when we consider the decades of experience and memory each individual carries. Arctic ground squirrels create complex burrow systems that can extend 20 feet underground, with multiple entrances and specialized chambers for different purposes. These underground cities include nursery rooms, food storage areas, and deep hibernation chambers that remain at stable temperatures throughout the year. The squirrels line their sleeping quarters with soft grasses and caribou hair, creating cozy retreats where they can sleep safely through 8 months of Arctic winter. Ringed seals can dive to depths of over 300 feet while hunting beneath the ice, their large eyes perfectly adapted to the dim underwater world of the Arctic Ocean. These accomplished divers can hold their breath for up to 20 minutes, using their time efficiently to hunt for the small fish and crustaceans that form the base of the Arctic food web. Their sleek bodies move through the water with minimal effort, conserving energy for the long swims between breathing holes. The aurora borealis follows magnetic field lines that funnel charged particles from space toward Earth's poles, creating a natural light show that mirrors the invisible architecture of our planet's magnetic field. These field lines extend far into space, creating a protective bubble around Earth that deflects most harmful solar radiation. When this shield is breached during solar storms, the result is the spectacular light display we see as the Northern Lights, nature's way of making the invisible visible. Narwhal tusks grow in a counterclockwise spiral pattern that creates a natural drill bit, perfectly designed for breaking through sea ice up to several inches thick. Each tusk is unique, with its own specific twist pattern and length that helps identify individual whales within their pods. The tusks continue growing throughout the whale's lifetime, creating living records of age and health that marine biologists are only beginning to understand. Arctic foxes cache surplus food in permafrost storage sites that remain frozen year-round, creating natural refrigerators that can preserve meat for months without spoilage. These intelligent hunters have been observed carrying prey items weighing nearly as much as themselves across considerable distances to reach suitable caching locations. Their food storage network can span several square miles, with individual foxes maintaining dozens of cache sites that provide security during unpredictable Arctic conditions. Tundra swans arrive in the Arctic with precise timing, appearing just as the ice begins to break up on their traditional nesting lakes. These magnificent birds have flown thousands of miles from their wintering grounds, navigating by instinct and celestial cues to reach breeding areas they may not have seen for nearly a year. Their arrival marks the true beginning of Arctic spring, their trumpet calls echoing across landscapes that are finally awakening from winter's grip. The permafrost creates unique acoustic properties that allow sounds to travel much farther than they would in temperate climates, turning the Arctic into a vast natural amphitheater. The hard, frozen ground acts like a sounding board, carrying the calls of wildlife, the crack of shifting ice, and the whisper of wind across incredible distances. This acoustic clarity means that Arctic animals can communicate across territories that would be impossible to traverse, maintaining social contact through sound alone. Beluga whales gather in shallow bays during summer months to rub against gravel beaches, a behavior that helps them shed old skin and remove parasites. These rubbing sessions appear almost playful, with dozens of whales rolling and sliding against the smooth stones in what looks like a spa treatment for marine mammals. The whales seem to enjoy this process, often spending hours in the shallows while engaging in social behaviors that strengthen pod bonds. Arctic char populations in different lakes have evolved unique feeding strategies, with some specializing in surface insects while others focus on bottom-dwelling invertebrates. These feeding preferences have shaped their body forms over thousands of years, creating distinct varieties that are perfectly adapted to their specific environments. Lake-dwelling char often develop deeper bodies and larger fins for maneuvering in still water, while stream populations remain more streamlined for life in flowing current. The midnight sun affects human circadian rhythms in Arctic communities, leading to sleep patterns that follow social cues rather than light cycles. People living in these regions often develop flexible sleep schedules, taking advantage of the endless daylight to accomplish tasks that would be impossible in darkness. Children adapt particularly well to this reverse schedule, playing outside at hours that would be deep night in temperate regions, while sleeping peacefully during what their bodies perceive as continuous day. Wolverines have been observed sliding down snowy slopes, apparently for pleasure, toboggan-style descents that serve no obvious survival purpose but suggest a playful intelligence that contradicts their fierce reputation. These solitary animals rarely interact with others of their kind except during mating season, but they seem to find entertainment in their harsh environment through these moments of apparent joy. Their slides create temporary pathways down hillsides that other animals sometimes use as convenient travel routes. Arctic rivers create natural ice bridges that can support the weight of caribou herds during their spring and fall migrations. These temporary crossing points form when flowing water slows and thickens, creating stable platforms that may last for weeks or even months depending on weather conditions. The caribou seem to instinctively recognize which ice formations are safe to cross, testing the surface carefully before committing their full weight to these natural bridges. The aurora borealis produces different colors at different altitudes, with green lights typically appearing at around 60 miles above Earth's surface, while rare red auroras occur at heights of over 200 miles. These altitude differences create layered light shows where multiple colors can appear simultaneously, separated by clear bands of dark sky. The result is like looking through a vertical rainbow that stretches from the horizon to directly overhead, with each color band marking a different level of atmospheric interaction. Snowy owls have been tracked making transoceanic flights during their migrations, crossing hundreds of miles of open water with no place to rest along the way. These powerful flyers can remain airborne for many hours, riding air currents and thermals to conserve energy during their epic journeys. Their migration routes often follow invisible highways in the sky, taking advantage of consistent wind patterns that have remained stable for thousands of years. Arctic ground squirrels emerge from hibernation with their internal clocks perfectly synchronized to the brief Arctic growing season, awakening just as the first green shoots appear through the melting snow. These remarkable animals somehow maintain awareness of seasonal progression even while completely unconscious, their bodies responding to subtle environmental cues that penetrate their deep underground burrows. Their emergence marks one of the most reliable signs that winter's grip is finally beginning to loosen across the tundra. Musk oxen wool fibers are hollow like polar bear hair, creating an insulation system so efficient that snow landing on their backs doesn't melt even during periods of physical activity. This remarkable adaptation allows them to maintain body temperature while expending minimal energy, a crucial advantage in an environment where food is scarce and weather conditions are extreme. The hollow fibers trap warm air close to their skin while repelling moisture and wind, creating a natural climate control system more effective than any human-made winter clothing. The Arctic Ocean supports a complex ecosystem of ice algae that grows on the underside of sea ice, creating hanging gardens that can extend several inches below the frozen surface. These microscopic plants form the foundation of Arctic marine food webs, supporting tiny crustaceans that feed fish, seals, and whales throughout the ecosystem. The algae create a greenish tinge on the underside of ice floes, turning the frozen ceiling of the ocean into a living, productive habitat that few people ever see. Beluga whales shed their skin completely each summer in a process called molting, rubbing against rough surfaces to help remove the old outer layer. During this time, they gather in shallow coastal waters where the gravel and stones provide natural exfoliation. The whales seem to enjoy this renewal process, often spending entire days rolling and sliding against the seafloor in what appears to be a social activity. Their pure white skin emerges fresh and clean, ready for another year in the Arctic waters. Arctic terns sleep while flying, taking brief, microsecond naps that allow them to rest during their incredible migrations without ever landing on the water. These remarkable birds can remain airborne for months at a time, their specialized brain structure allowing half their mind to sleep, while the other half maintains flight control. They ride thermal currents and wind patterns with such efficiency that they barely need to flap their wings during much of their journey between the poles. Caribou antlers grow faster than any other bone tissue in the animal kingdom, adding up to an inch per day during peak growing season. This rapid development requires enormous amounts of calcium and phosphorus, which the caribou obtain from specially selected plants and mineral-rich water sources. The antlers are covered in a soft, blood-rich skin called velvet that provides nutrients to the growing bone, creating branching structures that can weigh over 30 pounds when fully developed. The permafrost creates natural refrigeration systems that indigenous peoples have used for thousands of years to preserve food through the long Arctic winters. These underground ice cellars maintain constant temperatures just below freezing, providing perfect conditions for storing meat, fish, and other perishables without any artificial cooling. The storage chambers can be carved directly into permanently frozen ground, creating pantries that remain stable for decades or even centuries. Arctic foxes have asymmetrical hearing, with one ear positioned slightly higher than the other to help them pinpoint the exact location of prey moving beneath the snow. This adaptation allows them to triangulate sounds with remarkable precision, enabling them to pounce through several feet of soft snow and land directly on top of hidden lemmings or voles. Their success rate using this acoustic hunting technique is surprisingly high, even when they cannot see their prey at all. Bowhead whales communicate across vast distances using low-frequency calls that can travel hundreds of miles through Arctic waters. These deep songs penetrate through ice and across ocean basins, allowing widely separated whales to maintain contact even when they are beyond visual range. The calls seem to carry information about feeding areas, ice conditions, and social gatherings, creating an underwater communication network that spans the entire Arctic Ocean. Arctic char can survive being partially frozen, with ice crystals forming in their body fluids without causing permanent damage. This remarkable adaptation allows them to inhabit waters that would be lethal to most other fish species, remaining active even when lake temperatures drop to just above the freezing point. Their blood contains natural antifreeze proteins that prevent ice crystal formation in vital organs, while allowing less critical tissues to freeze and thaw without injury. The midnight sun creates a phenomenon called the green flash, where the last visible edge of the sun can appear bright green for just a few seconds as it skims along the horizon during its circular path. This optical effect occurs when atmospheric conditions bend and separate the sun's light into its component colors, with green being the last wavelength to remain visible. In the Arctic's clear, dry air, this green flash can sometimes last for several minutes rather than seconds, creating an ethereal glow across the ice. Narwhal pods engage in a behavior called tusking, where individuals gently cross their tusks in what appears to be a form of social interaction or communication. These underwater meetings can involve dozens of whales gathering in loose circles, their tusks creating abstract patterns as they move slowly through the water. Scientists believe this behavior may help establish social hierarchies or serve as a form of greeting between members of different family groups. Arctic ground squirrels can lower their body temperature to below freezing while hibernating, becoming the only known mammal capable of surviving with ice crystals in their blood. During the deepest phase of their 8-month sleep, their heart rate drops to just a few beats per minute, while their breathing becomes almost imperceptible. This suspended animation allows them to survive on stored body fat alone, emerging in spring with perfect timing to take advantage of the brief growing season. Ptarmigan change the color of their eyes with the seasons, developing bright orange irises during winter that fade to brown during summer months. This remarkable adaptation may help them see better in the low light conditions of Arctic winter, while the summer coloration provides better contrast against the bright tundra landscape. The eye color change happens gradually over several weeks, synchronized with their feather molt to create a complete seasonal transformation. The aurora borealis can extend far into space, with some displays reaching altitudes of over 600 miles above Earth's surface. These extreme high-altitude lights appear as faint red glows that are barely visible to the naked eye but can be detected by sensitive cameras and scientific instruments. The highest auroras mark the boundary where Earth's atmosphere gradually fades into the vacuum of space, creating ghostly light curtains that stretch toward the stars. Ringed seals create intricate breathing hole systems with underwater tunnels connecting multiple surface openings, allowing them to travel beneath the ice without being exposed to predators above. These tunnel networks can span several hundred yards, providing safe passage between feeding areas and resting sites. The seals maintain these underwater highways throughout winter, constantly enlarging and improving their hidden transportation system. Arctic rivers freeze from the bottom up in some locations, where underground springs keep surface water flowing while ice forms on the riverbed below. This unusual freezing pattern creates hollow ice tubes with water flowing through their centers, forming natural aqueducts that can extend for miles beneath the frozen surface. The sound of water moving through these ice tunnels creates haunting melodies that echo across the quiet landscape. Wolverines have been observed using tools, employing sticks and rocks to break open frozen carcasses and access marrow from large bones. These intelligent scavengers seem to understand leverage and percussion, using their environment creatively to solve problems that would otherwise require much greater physical strength. Their tool use appears to be learned behavior that varies between different populations, suggesting a form of cultural transmission among these solitary animals. Beluga whale calves are born with flexible skulls that allow them to change the shape of their heads, while learning to echolocate effectively. This cranial flexibility helps young whales fine-tune their sonar abilities, adjusting their melon shape to focus sound waves more precisely. As they mature, their skulls gradually solidify into the characteristic rounded shape that makes adult belugas such efficient underwater navigators. Arctic cotton grass seeds can remain viable for decades while buried in permafrost, germinating quickly when warming conditions expose them to sunlight and moisture. This remarkable longevity allows the plants to colonize newly available habitat as climate conditions change, spreading rapidly across areas where ice has recently melted. Some seeds may wait for centuries before finding the right conditions to sprout, creating genetic time capsules buried in the frozen ground. Musk ox herds navigate using ancient pathways marked by the bones of their ancestors, following routes that have been used continuously for thousands of years. These traditional trails are sometimes visible from aircraft as faint lines worn into the tundra, connecting seasonal grazing areas across hundreds of miles of Arctic landscape. The herds seem to inherit knowledge of these routes through observation and social learning, passing navigation wisdom from one generation to the next. The midnight sun affects the magnetic properties of certain Arctic rocks, creating localized magnetic anomalies that can interfere with compass readings and navigation equipment. These magnetic disturbances are most pronounced during periods of intense solar activity when the constant daylight interacts with mineral deposits in ways that scientists are still working to understand. The effect can cause compasses to point several degrees off true north and rotate their heads nearly specific locations. Snowy owls can 300 degrees, giving them an almost complete view of their surroundings without moving their bodies. This extreme flexibility compensates for their fixed eye position, allowing them to track prey movement while remaining perfectly camouflaged against their snowy background. Their neck vertebrae are specially adapted with extra joints and flexible connections that make this remarkable range of motion possible. Arctic foxes change their metabolic rate seasonally, slowing their energy consumption during winter months when food is scarce while increasing it dramatically during summer abundance. This metabolic flexibility allows them to survive long periods with minimal food intake, while taking maximum advantage of brief periods when prey is plentiful. Their bodies essentially shift gears between feast and famine modes, optimizing energy use for Arctic survival. caribou migration routes are so precisely timed that indigenous hunters can predict their arrival at specific river crossings within a few days, even accounting for yearly variations in weather and ice conditions. These predictions are based on generations of accumulated knowledge about caribou behavior, weather patterns, and environmental cues that influence herd movement. The timing has remained remarkably consistent for centuries, despite dramatic changes in the Arctic environment. The aurora borealis produces electromagnetic pulses that can induce electrical currents in long metal objects like pipelines and power lines, sometimes causing equipment failures hundreds of miles from the visible lights. These geomagnetic storms can overload electrical systems and disrupt satellite communications across entire continents, demonstrating the incredible power contained within what appears to be a gentle light show. The electromagnetic effects often persist for hours or days after the visible aurora has faded. Bearded seals use their sensitive whiskers to detect vibrations in the water, allowing them to locate food sources and navigate in complete darkness beneath thick ice. These specialized hairs can sense water movements created by fish swimming dozens of yards away, providing a tactile map of the underwater environment. The seals sweep their whiskers back and forth while swimming, constantly gathering information about their surroundings through touch alone. Arctic willow roots can extend horizontally for hundreds of feet beneath the tundra surface, creating vast underground networks that connect individual plants across entire valleys. These root systems allow the willows to share resources and information, with nutrients and water flowing between plants that may be separated by considerable distances above ground. The interconnected root network helps the entire willow community survive harsh conditions that might kill isolated individual plants. Walrus tusks contain growth rings similar to tree rings, providing scientists with detailed records of each animal's age and life history. These ivory chronometers reveal information about feeding success, environmental stress, and health conditions throughout the walrus's lifetime. Some tusks show evidence of periodic food shortages or injuries, creating permanent records of individual survival stories written in layers of dentine and enamel. Arctic terns have internal magnetic compasses that allow them to navigate across featureless ocean expanses using Earth's magnetic field as a guide. These biological compasses are so sensitive they can detect magnetic variations too subtle for human instruments to measure, providing precise directional information even during storms or cloudy conditions when celestial navigation is impossible. The magnetic sensors appear to be located in specialized cells behind the bird's eyes. Polar bear dens maintain internal temperatures up to 60 degrees warmer than the outside air through the mother's body heat and the insulating properties of packed snow. These thermal refugees create tropical microclimates in one of Earth's coldest environments, allowing tiny newborn cubs to survive temperatures that would be instantly fatal to exposed adults. The den walls gradually become lined with ice from the bear's breath, creating smooth, cave-like chambers that reflect and concentrate heat. Arctic char lakes often contain fish populations that have been isolated for thousands of years, leading to the evolution of unique characteristics in each water body. Some populations have developed enlarged fins for maneuvering in still water, while others have evolved specialized feeding structures for their particular lake's food sources. These evolutionary experiments continue today, with each isolated lake serving as a natural laboratory for fish adaptation. The permafrost acts as a massive carbon storage system containing more carbon than all living plants and the atmosphere combined. This frozen organic matter represents thousands of years of accumulated plant and animal remains, preserved in a natural deep freeze that has kept them from decomposing. As temperatures warm, some of this ancient carbon is beginning to thaw and release, potentially affecting global climate patterns in ways scientists are still working to understand. Bowhead whales have been observed breaking through ice over 2 feet thick using only their massive heads as battering rams. These gentle giants can smash through barriers that would stop most other marine mammals, creating breathing holes large enough for entire pods to use. The whales' skulls are specially reinforced with thick bone and protective tissue that allows them to withstand the tremendous forces involved in ice-breaking activities. Arctic ground squirrels create complex social hierarchies during their brief summer activity periods, with dominant individuals claiming the best territories while subordinates are relegated to marginal habitat. These social structures dissolve completely during hibernation, only to reform each spring with subtle changes based on the previous year's breeding success and survival rates. The social dynamics play out like a compressed drama, with an entire year's worth of territorial disputes and mating competitions compressed into just a few months. Narwhal tusks are hollow for most of their length, making them much lighter than solid ivory while maintaining their strength and sensitivity. This hollow construction allows the tusks to function as sophisticated sensory organs without being too heavy for the whales to carry comfortably. The hollow space is filled with nerve tissue that extends almost to the tip, creating a living sensor more sensitive than human fingertips. The midnight sun creates unique photosynthetic conditions that allow some Arctic plants to produce energy continuously for weeks at a time, storing enormous amounts of nutrients in their roots and stems during the brief growing season. These plants essentially work around the clock during summer, taking advantage of every moment of available light to build the energy reserves they need to survive the long Arctic night. Some species produce more biomass in 3 months than temperate plants create in a full year. Arctic foxes have been observed teaching their kits hunting techniques by bringing them live prey to practice with, demonstrating a level of parental instruction rare among wild animals. The adult foxes seem to understand that their young need to develop hunting skills before the family disperses, providing opportunities for safe learning in controlled situations. These teaching sessions often take place near the den entrance, where parents can supervise and intervene if necessary. Ringed seals can hold their breath for over 20 minutes while hunting beneath the ice. Their large lungs and efficient oxygen storage systems allowing them to pursue prey at considerable depths without surfacing. During these extended dives, their heart rate slows dramatically to conserve oxygen, while their blood is redirected away from non-essential organs toward the brain and muscles. They emerge from these deep hunts with their mouths full of small fish and crustaceans. The aurora borealis follows predictable patterns that repeat approximately every 11 years, in sync with solar activity cycles, allowing scientists to forecast periods of increased auroral activity with reasonable accuracy. These predictions help airlines reroute flights around magnetic disturbance zones, while giving aurora enthusiasts advance notice of the best viewing opportunities. The cyclical nature of these displays reflects the sun's own magnetic field variations as it rotates and reverses polarity. Wolverines mark their territories with scent stations that can remain detectable for months in the dry Arctic air, creating invisible boundary markers that communicate information about the resident animal's size, health, and reproductive status. These scent posts are strategically placed along travel routes and near cached food supplies, serving as both territorial warnings and information bulletin boards for other wolverines passing through the area. Arctic char develop different jaw structures depending on their primary food sources, with some populations evolving longer, more pointed heads for catching swimming prey, while others develop shorter, more powerful jaws for crushing bottom-dwelling invertebrates. These adaptive variations can develop within just a few generations, demonstrating the remarkable plasticity of these fish when responding to environmental pressures and available food sources. Beluga whales engage in a behavior called spy hopping, where they poke their heads vertically above the water surface to observe their surroundings with their eyes, rather than relying solely on echolocation. During these aerial surveys, the whales can rotate their flexible necks to look in different directions, gathering visual information about ice conditions, potential threats, and other whale pods in the vicinity. The permafrost creates unique acoustic phenomena where sounds can travel through the frozen ground faster and farther than through air, creating underground communication networks that Arctic animals may use for long-distance signaling. Seismic vibrations from footsteps, digging, or other activities can carry for miles through the solid frozen substrate, potentially allowing animals to detect each other's presence across vast distances. Arctic rivers create natural amphitheaters where the sound of flowing water echoes off ice formations and rock walls, amplifying the gentle murmur of current into complex acoustic landscapes. These natural concert halls can magnify whispers into audible conversations while transforming the splash of jumping fish into percussion that carries across the tundra. The acoustic properties change constantly as ice forms and melts, creating ever-shifting soundscapes throughout the seasons. Snowy owls cache surplus prey during abundant periods, creating frozen food stores that can sustain them through leaner times when hunting opportunities are scarce. These natural freezers take advantage of the Arctic's reliable cold temperatures to preserve meat for weeks or months without spoilage. The owls seem to remember the locations of dozens of cache sites, returning to retrieve stored food with remarkable spatial memory accuracy. Arctic cotton grass produces seeds with built-in parachutes that allow them to travel hundreds of miles on Arctic winds, colonizing new habitat with remarkable efficiency. These airborne seeds can remain viable while drifting for days or weeks, waiting for favorable landing conditions before germinating. Some seeds have been tracked crossing entire ocean basins, spreading Arctic plant communities to previously uncolonized islands and coastal areas. Musk oxen have specialized hooves that act like natural ice picks, with sharp edges and textured soles that provide excellent traction on frozen surfaces. These adaptive feet allow them to maintain sure footing on ice-covered slopes and navigate treacherous terrain that would challenge most other large mammals. The hooves also serve as digging tools for uncovering vegetation buried beneath snow and ice. The midnight sun affects snow crystal formation, creating unique ice structures that only develop under constant low-angle illumination. These formations include delicate needle crystals and elaborate frost flowers that grow slowly over days or weeks, building complex geometric patterns that would be impossible under normal day-night temperature cycles. The constant but gentle solar heating creates thermal gradients in the snow that drive the formation of these ephemeral ice sculptures. Caribou have specialized tendons in their legs that click when they walk, creating a sound that helps herd members maintain contact with each other during migrations through fog or blowing snow. These clicking sounds are produced automatically with each step, requiring no conscious effort from the animals, while providing a constant acoustic beacon that prevents individuals from becoming separated from the group. The clicking rate increases with walking speed, providing information about the herd's pace and direction. Arctic foxes undergo dramatic personality changes between seasons, becoming bold and aggressive during summer abundance while developing cautious, conservative behaviors during the harsh winter months. These behavioral adaptations help them optimize their survival strategies for dramatically different environmental conditions, maximizing reproductive success during brief summer opportunities, while minimizing risk during dangerous winter periods. Bowhead whales have been observed using ice floes as tools, pushing floating ice chunks to stun fish or create barriers that concentrate prey in areas where feeding is more efficient. This tool use demonstrates a level of environmental manipulation and problem-solving ability that suggests these ancient giants possess sophisticated cognitive abilities that scientists are only beginning to understand and appreciate. The aurora borealis creates its own weather systems in the upper atmosphere, generating winds and temperature variations that can affect atmospheric circulation patterns hundreds of miles away from the visible lights. These high-altitude disturbances can influence cloud formation and precipitation patterns, creating connections between space weather and terrestrial climate that operate on scales ranging from local to global. Ringed seals have developed remarkable underwater vision that allows them to hunt effectively in the perpetual twilight beneath Arctic ice. Their large, dark eyes can detect the faintest movements of small fish and crustaceans in conditions where most marine mammals would be functionally blind. The seal's pupils can dilate to extraordinary sizes, gathering every available photon of light that filters down through the ice above. This exceptional night vision extends their hunting opportunities throughout the long Arctic winter, when surface light is scarce or completely absent for months at a time. Arctic willows communicate through underground chemical signals, sending messages between distant plants through their interconnected root networks. When one willow experiences stress from insect damage or drought, it can warn neighboring plants to begin producing defensive compounds before the threat reaches them. This chemical communication system operates like a slow-motion internet beneath the tundra, allowing entire willow communities to coordinate their responses to environmental challenges. The messages travel at the speed of root growth and chemical diffusion, creating conversations that unfold over days or weeks rather than seconds. Polar bears enter a state called walking hibernation during the harshest winter months, slowing their metabolism dramatically while remaining active enough to hunt when opportunities arise. This unique adaptation allows them to conserve energy during periods when seals are scarce, while maintaining the alertness needed to capitalize on unexpected hunting chances. Their body temperature drops several degrees, their heart rate slows, and their digestive system becomes incredibly efficient at extracting nutrients from whatever food they can find. The midnight sun creates thermal layers in Arctic lakes that remain stable for months, with warm surface water floating above colder depths in a phenomenon that reverses the typical pattern found in temperate lakes. These inverted thermal layers create unique habitat zones where different species of fish and aquatic organisms thrive at specific depths. Arctic char often cruise along these temperature boundaries, finding optimal conditions for feeding and avoiding the metabolic stress of temperature extremes. Walruses have been observed using their tusks as walking sticks while moving across uneven ice surfaces, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of leverage and balance that helps them navigate treacherous terrain. These massive marine mammals can weigh over 3,000 pounds, yet they move across shifting ice flows with surprising grace by using their tusks as stabilizing tools. The behavior appears to be learned rather than instinctive, with older walruses teaching younger individuals the techniques through observation and imitation. Arctic terns possess internal calendars so precise they can predict seasonal changes weeks before they occur, beginning their epic migrations based on subtle environmental cues that remain invisible to human observers. These biological timepieces integrate information from magnetic fields, atmospheric pressure, and celestial mechanics to create navigation systems more accurate than any human-made instrument. The birds seem to know exactly when to depart from their breeding grounds to arrive at their destination precisely as conditions become optimal. Snowy owls have specialized feathers on their wingtips that eliminate sound during flight, allowing them to approach prey in complete silence, even when flying at high speeds over crunchy snow. These sound-dampening feathers work like natural noise cancellation technology, disrupting air turbulence that would otherwise create the whooshing sounds associated with wing beats. The silent flight gives them a crucial advantage when hunting prey with acute hearing, such as lemmings and Arctic foxes. Permafrost creates underground ice lenses that can be several feet thick and extend for hundreds of yards beneath the surface, forming natural skating rinks hidden deep below the tundra. These buried ice sheets sometimes rupture under pressure, creating sudden sinkholes or ice geysers that can appear without warning across the landscape. The ice lenses grow slowly over decades, fed by groundwater that seeps down and freezes in layers during the coldest periods of each year. Belugas engage in synchronized breathing when traveling in pods, with entire groups surfacing and diving in perfect unison like underwater ballet dancers. This coordinated behavior may help them conserve energy during long migrations by reducing water turbulence around the group, creating a slipstream effect similar to bicycle racers or migrating birds. The synchronization requires constant communication through subtle body language and acoustic signals that maintain the group's rhythm even in murky water. Arctic char eggs can survive being frozen solid during winter, remaining viable in shallow spawning beds that freeze completely for months at a time. The eggs contain natural antifreeze proteins that prevent ice crystal formation from damaging the developing embryos, allowing them to complete their development after spring thaw. This remarkable cold tolerance extends the spawning season for Arctic char, enabling them to reproduce in locations and conditions that would be lethal to most other fish species. Musk oxen shed their precious kiviot undercoat in specific patterns that follow the contours of their bodies, creating natural fiber that falls away in sheets during spring molting. Indigenous peoples have learned to predict exactly when and where this shedding will occur, gathering the soft wool from traditional collection sites without disturbing the animals. The civet often catches on rocks, bushes, and ice formations, creating temporary decorations that flutter in the Arctic breeze like prayer flags. The aurora borealis influences radio wave propagation in ways that can enhance long-distance communication under certain conditions, occasionally allowing radio operators to make contact across distances that would normally be impossible. These enhancement effects occur when the charged particles creating the aurora act as reflectors in the upper atmosphere, bouncing radio signals back toward Earth at angles that extend their range dramatically. Arctic communities have learned to take advantage of these natural communication boosts during particularly active auroral displays. Wolverines possess an extraordinary sense of smell that allows them to detect buried carcasses through several feet of snow, locating food sources that have been frozen and hidden for months. Their olfactory abilities are so acute they can determine not only the location of buried meat, but also its condition and approximate age, helping them decide whether the effort required to dig it up will be worthwhile. This scavenging efficiency makes wolverines crucial recyclers in the Arctic ecosystem, ensuring that no protein goes to waste. Arctic ground squirrels synchronize their hibernation cycles with their neighbors, creating underground communities where entire colonies enter dormancy within days of each other. This synchronized sleeping may provide protection through collective awareness, with late sleepers serving as sentries for those already in hibernation, while early wakers can alert the colony to spring conditions. The timing appears to be coordinated through chemical signals and social interactions that occur during the brief period before hibernation begins. Narwhals dive to depths where the water pressure would crush most marine mammals, reaching depths of over a mile while hunting for deep-water squid and fish. Their bodies are specially adapted to withstand these extreme pressures with flexible rib cages that can compress without injury and blood chemistry that prevents nitrogen narcosis. During these deep dives, they enter a state of suspended animation where their heart rate drops to just a few beats per minute while they glide silently through the darkness. The midnight sun creates unique plant-growing conditions where photosynthesis continues around the clock, allowing Arctic flowers to bloom continuously for weeks rather than following daily cycles of opening and closing. This constant energy production enables plants to complete their entire life cycle in just a few months, cramming a full year's worth of growth into the brief Arctic summer. Some flowers remain open for their entire blooming period, creating carpets of color that persist unchanged for weeks at a time. Bowhead whales maintain social bonds across decades, with individual relationships that can span multiple generations within family groups. These emotional connections are reinforced through complex vocalizations and physical contact during brief summer gatherings, creating support networks that help individuals survive the isolation of winter feeding grounds. Older whales seem to serve as repositories of cultural knowledge, teaching younger individuals about historical feeding areas and migration routes through acoustic traditions passed down across centuries. Arctic foxes develop thicker fur on their paws during winter, growing natural mittens that protect their feet from frostbite while providing better traction on ice and snow. These furry foot warmers are shed each spring and regrown each fall, creating a seasonal cycle of foot protection that perfectly matches the changing demands of Arctic travel. The paw fur is so dense it can support the fox's entire weight on soft snow without the animal sinking through the surface. Ringed seals create breathing holes with specific acoustic properties that amplify their calls, turning these vital aerophones that help access points into natural meg, them communicate across vast distances beneath the ice. The seals carefully maintain the shape and size of their breathing holes to optimize their acoustic performance, creating underwater sound systems that can carry their calls for miles through the Arctic Ocean. Each seal's breathing hole has a unique acoustic signature that helps identify the individual using it. Tundra swans perform elaborate courtship dances on the ice, their white forms creating moving sculptures against the pristine Arctic landscape. These mating displays can last for hours, with pairs engaging in synchronized movements that seem to celebrate the return of spring and the promise of new life. The dances often attract audiences of other swans, creating gatherings where multiple pairs perform simultaneously in what looks like a natural ballet company rehearsing on nature's grandest stage. The permafrost preserves pollen and plant matter so perfectly that scientists can reconstruct detailed pictures of Arctic vegetation from thousands of years ago, creating time-lapse movies of how plant communities have changed over millennia. These frozen archives contain seeds that can still germinate after centuries in the deep freeze, occasionally producing plants that represent genetic lineages thought to be extinct. The permafrost acts like a natural seed bank, storing biological diversity through ice ages and climate changes. Arctic char populations in different lakes have evolved distinct spawning behaviors, with some species creating elaborate nests while others simply scatter their eggs over gravel beds. These reproductive strategies reflect adaptations to specific lake conditions, with nest-building behavior developing in lakes with strong currents, while broadcast spawning occurs in still waters. The variations in spawning behavior can be so dramatic that fish from different lakes appear to belong to entirely different species. Beluga whales use bubble nets to concentrate small fish and crustaceans, creating cylindrical walls of air bubbles that confuse and corral their prey. This cooperative hunting technique requires precise timing and coordination between multiple whales, with each individual contributing to the formation and maintenance of the bubble structure. The technique is learned through observation and practice, with young whales spending years perfecting their bubble-blowing skills under the guidance of experienced adults. Arctic willows can live for several centuries, their low-growing forms spreading slowly across the tundra, while individual stems die and regenerate in continuous cycles of renewal. These ancient plants create living carpets that may have been growing in the same locations since before European exploration of the Arctic began. Their extreme longevity makes them valuable climate indicators, with growth ring patterns in their stems, providing records of environmental conditions spanning multiple human lifetimes. The midnight sun affects animal migration timing in subtle ways, with some species using the quality of light rather than its presence or absence as cues for seasonal movements. The angle and color temperature of the sun as it circles the horizon provide information about the progression of seasons that remains consistent even during periods of continuous daylight. Arctic animals have learned to read these subtle light signals like a natural calendar that guides their movements across the landscape. Walrus herds engage in complex social grooming behaviors that strengthen bonds between individuals, while helping to remove parasites and dead skin. These grooming sessions can involve dozens of walruses working in coordinated chains, with each animal grooming the one in front while being groomed by the one behind. The social aspect of this behavior seems as important as its practical benefits, creating opportunities for bonding and communication within the herd structure. Polar bears have been observed sliding down snowy hills apparently for pleasure. their massive forms creating temporary sledding runs that other bears sometimes use repeatedly. These playful behaviors suggest an intelligence and emotional complexity that goes beyond simple survival instincts, indicating that even apex predators can find joy in their harsh environment. The sliding behavior appears most commonly among younger bears, though adults have been seen participating in these Arctic playground activities. Arctic ground squirrels create emergency caches scattered throughout their territories, storing food supplies that serve as insurance against unexpected weather events or other disruptions to their normal feeding patterns. These backup food stores are carefully concealed and distributed across multiple locations to minimize the risk of total loss to predators or environmental disasters. The squirrels maintain mental maps of dozens of cache locations, demonstrating spatial memory abilities that rival those of much larger mammals. Snowy owls migrate in irregular patterns that follow prey availability rather than fixed seasonal schedules, sometimes traveling thousands of miles south during years when Arctic rodent populations crash. These eruptive migrations can bring large numbers of Arctic owls to temperate regions where they become temporary residents until northern prey populations recover. The owl's migration decisions seem based on complex calculations involving current food availability, energy reserves, and reproductive timing. The aurora borealis creates electromagnetic fields strong enough to induce electrical currents in large metal structures, sometimes causing interference with electronic equipment across entire regions. These geomagnetic effects can persist for days after visible auroral activity has ceased, creating delayed impacts on communication systems and power grids. The electromagnetic disturbances follow patterns that mirror the visual displays, creating invisible aurora that can be detected by sensitive instruments long after the lights have faded. Bearded seals use their whiskers as underwater antennae, detecting water movements and pressure changes that reveal the location of food sources or potential threats. These specialized hairs are so sensitive they can feel the wake created by a fish swimming several yards away, providing detailed information about the size, speed, and direction of movement. The whiskers work in coordination with the seal's other senses to create a comprehensive picture of the underwater environment. Arctic char develop unique coloration patterns that serve as individual identification marks within their lake populations, creating natural name tags that help researchers track specific fish over multiple years. These color patterns can change slightly with age and breeding condition, but maintain enough consistency to serve as reliable identification markers. Some populations have evolved particularly striking colors that make individual recognition possible, even in underwater photographs taken years apart. Caribou hooves change shape seasonally, growing longer and more pointed during winter to provide better traction on ice, while becoming more rounded during summer for efficient travel across soft tundra. This adaptive hoof structure helps explain their remarkable ability to travel across varied Arctic terrain throughout the year, with each seasonal form optimized for the specific challenges of that period. The hoof changes occur gradually over several weeks, synchronized with other seasonal adaptations. Musk oxen form defensive formations so quickly and efficiently that the entire process resembles a military drill executed with perfect precision. Adults can arrange themselves into protective circles within seconds of detecting a threat, with each animal taking a predetermined position based on size, age, and social status within the herd. This rapid response capability has been refined over thousands of generations, creating an almost instinctive choreography of protection that requires no apparent leadership or communication. The permafrost creates natural, freezing patterns that preserve organic matter in distinct layers, each representing different historical periods with their own unique plant and animal communities. These frozen time capsules contain intact leaves, insects, pollen, and even occasional larger specimens that provide detailed snapshots of Arctic life from different eras. Scientists can read these permafrost layers like pages in a history book, reconstructing detailed pictures of how Arctic ecosystems have changed over thousands of years. Arctic foxes cache food with remarkable precision, often burying prey items in locations that will be easily accessible even after heavy snowfall obscures all surface landmarks. Their spatial memory allows them to relocate buried food months later by using subtle cues like wind patterns, elevation changes, and the position of distant objects that remain visible above the snow. This caching behavior requires them to think several months into the future, planning for conditions they have never directly experienced. Bowhead whales sing songs that can last for over an hour, creating underwater concerts that combine complex melodies with rhythmic patterns that seem to follow musical structures similar to human compositions. These lengthy vocalizations may serve multiple purposes, from long-distance communication to territorial marking to simple social bonding within whale communities. Individual whales seem to have signature songs that other members of their population can recognize, creating acoustic identification systems that work across vast ocean distances. The midnight sun creates optical effects where the same rainbow can persist for hours as the sun traces its circular path across the sky, creating arcs of color that seem to rotate slowly around the observer. These extended rainbow displays occur when atmospheric conditions remain stable for long periods, allowing the same prismatic effects to continue as the sun maintains a constant angle above the horizon. The result is a natural light show that combines the beauty of rainbows with the endurance of Arctic daylight. And so our gentle journey through the Arctic's peaceful mysteries comes to a quiet close. We've wandered together across endless expanses of ice and snow, discovering the remarkable ways that life not only survives but thrives in this pristine wilderness. From the hollow hairs of polar bears to the ancient songs of bowhead whales, from the synchronized breathing of beluga pods to the patient hibernation of ground squirrels. Each fact has been like a snowflake settling softly into the landscape of your mind. The Arctic has shared its secrets with us tonight, revealing a world where time moves differently, where silence speaks volumes, and where every adaptation tells a story of resilience and grace. In this land of midnight sun and dancing auroras, we've found reminders that even in the most challenging environments, beauty persists and life finds extraordinary ways to flourish. As you drift deeper into rest, carry with you the tranquil wisdom of this frozen realm. Let the gentle rhythm of caribou migrations guide your breathing. The soft glow of northern lights illuminate your dreams, and the patient endurance of Arctic willows remind you that growth can happen even in the quietest, most challenging moments. The Arctic's eternal peace is now part of you, a sanctuary of calm you can return to whenever you need its soothing embrace. Sleep well, and may your dreams be filled with the serene wonders of the far north.